Yeah, welcome back. Now please refer this figure. This is the figure representing the Gaussian function. In this Gaussian function, what you told you that the input is represented by this x-axis. You can check it here, and the response of this Gaussian activation function is represented by phi x. Okay, and the mean of the signal is represented as mu, and this distance you can see with the sigma. Okay, now the phi of x, which is the Gaussian function, which is represented as e to the power minus inside the bracket x minus mu whole square divided by sigma square. Okay, so this is the Gaussian function what we will be using in our hidden layer, where it consisting of a number of hidden neurons, and they are interfaced by these activation functions. Okay, so now this is the architecture of our radial basis function neural network, and now let us see. If you see this diagram minutely, if you observe, this value of x is maximum here and it is gradually reducing, and there is a range, let's say from this point to this point. After that it is converging or it is reducing. Okay, so then the question comes, how do we decide the range here? This is how do we decide the range of this Gaussian function, that we'll discuss. And the output beyond the range is neglected. You see, if the output you check it here, these are all are neglected. So these are the things we focus. Now look at this diagram here again. Here mu is the center of the neurons and phi x is the activation functions, or phi x the response to the input vector x. Okay, in this figure you see these circles. There are 12 number of circles, 1 2 3 4. These circles represent the Gaussian neural nodes. This is one node, this is second node, third node. These all we call it as the Gaussian neural nodes, and the each circle there is a boundary. You can see it here, a circular boundary is there. The boundary of the circle represents the range of the corresponding node. What I given you that the node, the range, beyond that range it is negligible. So this, because it is just like a diagrammatical representation, we say this is a Gaussian node, and this circumference represent the boundary. Okay, so this is the range, and here a 2D vector space is partitioned by 12 Gaussian nodes. So 12 number of Gaussian nodes are there. First row it is 4, second row it is 4, third row it is 4, 4, 4, 4, it is 12. Okay, that you can check it. Okay, and here it is represented by x2, and here it is represented by x1. Now you can see every input vector activates uh, the collective system. Say for each and every, here the nodes are there, some input are provided, may let it be x1, x2, x3, like that it is provided. So every input vector activates the collective system of neuron to some extent, and the combination of this activation enables RBFF to decide how to respond. So you see, it is not the response or output of a single neuron, it is the collective response. Say suppose I have taken 12 number of neurons in a layer, and in this 12 number I have given some inputs, and after multiplying this activation function, etc., I find some response. This cumulative response makes a meaning. So individual response is not no use. Okay, to decide how to respond, above configurations of neuron will generate similar output signals for input vector A and B, whereas the C output generates will be quite different. Okay, so if you see our radial basis function, first thing you will focus that there are three layers. First one is the input layer. This you can see the input layer. Second one is the hidden layer, which are provided with the Gaussian functions, and third one is the output layer. Okay, now the input layer to the hidden layer. So all these neurons, they are connected, totally connected. You can say all are connected to each other, and they are provided some weights. These weights are predefined, that is fixed. Okay, so but when they are processed by this activation function, this Gaussian function here, again we find some weights are there from this Gaussian function, the hidden layer, to the output layer. These weights we can go for the adjustment or we can go for the training. So finally whatever the output we find, that is the output for these things. The same thing is explained here in RBMF architecture. Weights connecting input vector to hidden neurons represent the center of the corresponding neurons. These weights are predetermined. What I told that is already defined in such a way that the entire space is covered by the receptive field of these neurons. Okay. Whereas values of these weights connecting the hidden layer to the output layer, they determine the training of the neuron. That means we can change it when it is the question of training. We can change it. We can adjust it, and it's appropriate if vector lying close to the Euclidean space falls under this receptive field. Now, what are the neurons or what are the nodes close to the Euclidean space? That is represented by the K-mean clustering algorithm. For the K-mean clustering algorithm, first I explain what is the algorithm. Then we'll use a PowerPoint presentation to explain that one. First thing, see, choose the number of cluster centers K. Here cluster means some group of similar things are there. We call it as a cluster. Okay, it is just like some classes. So choose the number of cluster centers. Suppose there are some clusters are there. I have selected K number of cluster centers, and randomly choose K points from the data sets. So because this is one data set, this is another set data set, I randomly select or randomly choose K points from the data set and set them as K centered. So you take that is the center point. Okay, for all the points in the data set, determine the centered close to it. So what are the points close to that one? That we have to decide here. That is the main purpose of this K-mean clustering algorithm. And for all centroids, calculate the average of all the points lying closest to the same centroid and change the value of all the centroids to corresponding average value of this in 4 and go to 3 until this convergence is there. So using these things, we can calculate the maximum distance d between the neurons, and the d and the sigma and d, they are represented by equation. This sigma, which is equal to d divided by square root of twice m. M is the number of neurons in the hidden layers, we can say. Okay, sigma I already have shown you what is the sigma, and d the maximum distance. So all the things are represented here. Now let us go to our PowerPoint presentation where we can explain everything. Okay. Yeah. Now welcome to the K-mean algorithm. Okay. Here, this is used for exploratory data analysis techniques, and it is implement non-hierarchical method of grouping objects together, and it also determines the centered using Euclidean method for distance calculations. What I calculate the small d, if you remember that, that is calculated using this one, and the group of objects based on the minimum distance. That is the main thing it is here. Now, you see the flow chart, it is just like start, then input the number of clusters. I have taken K number of things, if you remember. Then calculate the centered of all the things randomly you have selected, calculate the distance what is closest and the group based on the minimum distance. So for a cluster center, what are the things close to that one, that you group to that particular center. Okay, so this is the thing it is done here. Now let us apply our K-mean clustering for the following data sets for 2 clusters. First one, we have the sample number 1, that is 185 x-axis and y-axis 72, sample number 2, sample number 3, sample number 4, 5, 6. There are these number of data sets are available. We have 6 number of samples, and the coordinate are x-axis 185 and y-axis 72. All the things are there. Okay. Now let us calculate the Euclidean distance using the given equation. So there is an equation for that one. The distance between xy and AB is represented as square root over of x minus a whole square plus y minus b whole square. So this is the thing we find it there. Suppose we take it with respect to k1, then what are the first points? If you see the previous one, the first point is 185 and 72. Okay, 185, 72, and we are taking randomly the center is 170, 56. Okay, then how do we calculate all the things? So calculation of Euclidean distance using this given equation. This is the general equation. Suppose I want to calculate for 185 and 72. Then what is the distance of this point from that particular point? That means I want to calculate the distance from 185, 72 to 185, 72. Then what we will do? So x component is 185. So 185 minus 185 whole square plus 722 minus 72 whole square. Obviously it is 0. So suppose I want to calculate the distance from the second one. Second one I have taken 170, 56. So in that case the initial was 185. You remember? So 170 minus 185 whole square. Similarly 56 minus 72 whole square. So by using all the things, what is the distance I calculated? Distance is equal to, because the square root of all the things, it is coming 21.97. Now I assigned k1 from x it is 0, and then it is 21.93 what we calculated. Similarly k2 with respect to x it is 21.93, with respect to y it is 0. So this is the distance we calculated. Similarly we will calculate the number of distances, and based on that we will find what is the minimum distance, and the minimum distance we will put to that particular cluster. Now let us go to now calculate the next data. Suppose I go for the next one 16860. Okay. Now with respect to 18572, so it is 168 minus 185 whole square plus this 60 minus 72 whole square, it is coming 20.808. So now this is from cluster 1. Now from the cluster 2, if you want to calculate, because cluster 2 it was 1, so because the thing is that I select a point and I randomly have selected two cluster. Cluster 1 is here and cluster 2 is here. Suppose this point is here somewhere. What is the distance of this point to this cluster, and what is the distance of this point to this cluster? So this is the thing we are going to calculate. So from cluster 1, what is the cluster 1 point? It is 185.72. Now what is the point we have selected now? We have selected the point 168.60. So now what is the distance from cluster 1? It has come 20.808. It is a unit, it is centimeter millimeter, don't worry at this point. Then from the second cluster it is coming 4.472. Now comparing these two, you can find what is the minimum distance. Now you say, tell me what is the minimum distance is 4.472. Okay. Now, so now you assign, so it is the point we have taken 168.60. 168, x axis is 168, y axis is 60. So it is closer to the cluster 2. You can clearly see it here. It is closer to the cluster 2. Then I assign 2. That means this particular point, it is falling in the cluster 2. So like this we can take all the points, and because randomly you have selected two clusters, we compare with these two clusters and what is the minimum distance of that particular point to these two clusters, that point will belong to that cluster. So this is the meaning of all the things. Again we have updated all the things, the first one, the second one, then we have gone for the average of that one. First one was 185, second one was 170. This average is 169. So now, sorry, average was 169, right? Now the same way we go on continuing, we go on assigning, and finally we assign and we make all these points what I have shown you. Some of them belong to cluster 1, some of them belong to cluster 2. So I think I have given you the minimum stuff that you can understand the K-mean algorithm. So you are interested, you can check all these the samples I have taken. Initially I have taken 185.72 cluster 1, second I have taken 170, 56, then 168, 60, 179, 68. All those points, 6 number of data sets, so 6 number of points in the data set we have taken. We have calculated, we found it that the sample 1, similarly sample 4, sample 5 and 6, they are assigned cluster number 1, whereas sample 2 and 3 they are assigned cluster number 2. So this is all about the K-mean algorithm. Now we'll go back to our now let us look at the algorithm. The algorithm is like this. Define a number of hidden neurons. I told you that a hidden layer is 1, but the number of neurons in the hidden layer, it will be decided by what are the features we are going to consider, or what are the parameters we are going to take. Suppose I have 8 number of features, then I have to select 8 number of neurons, but layer is 1, that is the only single hidden layer. So now define the number of hidden neurons that I decided K. Set the position of RBFM center using K-mean cluster algorithm. Now calculate sigma. If you remember, this sigma is calculated that is equal to divided by something like that, all the equation already I have given you, that you can calculate. Then calculate the action of this RBF node using this equation. All the things you can do it. Okay. Now we train our output using the equation 3. So this is all about the radial basis function neural network, and how it follows the Euclidean distance from the K-mean algorithm. Then we are going to discuss about the comparison between the radial basis function and multilayer perceptron. So multilayer perceptrons are advantages over RBFMN, where the underlying characteristics features of data is embedded deeply inside very high dimensional data sets. You understand? So when do you understand what I'm telling? This MLP is advantageous over RBF, where now when the underlying characteristics features of a data is embedded deeply inside the high dimensional data sets. For example, in image recognition, feature depicting the key informations about the image is hidden inside the tens of thousands of pixels. For such training example, the redundant features are filtered as the information progress through the stack of hidden layers in MLP, and as a result, better performance is achieved. Having only one, but in case of RBFN, we are having only one hidden layer, and it has much faster convergence rate as compared to the MLP. For low dimensional data, where deep feature extraction is not required and results are directly correlated with the component of input vectors, then RBFN network is usually preferred. You get it now? So when more number of features are there, so then we have to go for the multi-layer perceptron, where low dimensional data is there, especially for the deep feature extraction is not required. In that case, we can go for the radial basis functions. So this is the minimum things I have told you regarding the radial basis function, and why we will go for this radial basis function neural network when the multi-layer perceptrons are there. So remember, in general, a thumb rule, in multi-layer perceptron, there can be one or more hidden layer. N number of layers can be there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But in case of radial basis function, there is only a single hidden layer neurons, a hidden layer, and the number of neurons is only based on the features you are providing for that. Okay. Thank you. I hope you can prepare well for your exam, and I wish you all the best and good health, etc. Thank you. Thank you all.